During coronavirus pandemic in the year 2020, it was just the agriculture sector which showed positive growth while every other sector was showing a degrowth. And this clearly proved that Indian agriculture is really the backbone of our economy. And according to a report, it employs close to 263 million people. Nearly 41% of the Indian population is employed in the agriculture sector, and the contribution of GDP, in fact, over the past few months has also gone up significantly to close to 20% now. Hence, like every other sector, this sector also needs a support of the government, the private sector, and of course, technology. And that's why today we are discussing the issue of unlocking the agri potential in India. Because when everything was shut, when everything was under lockdown, it was only the agriculture sector in the country which remained resilient, which showed a positive growth, and it only shows about the potential that it really has at this point in time, and how the government, the private sector can really do a lot to improve the state of the agriculture in our country. Joining us today is Dr. Ashok Dalwai, who is CEO, National Rainfed Area Authority, Chairman, Empowered Body, Doubling Farmers' Income, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, Government of India, Mr. Gopal Naik, who is Professor, Economics and Social Sciences, IIM Bangalore. We are also joined by Dr. T.R. Keswan, who is Group President, Corporate Relations and Alliances, Tractors and Farm Equipment Limited, and he's also the chairman of FICCI Committee on Agriculture. We have with us Mr. Setlur Raghavan, who is the Vice President of Global Social Innovation Business, Hitachi India. Thank you very much, gentlemen, all of you, for joining us here today. Let me begin this discussion with you, Dr. Dalwai. In your opinion, what is the state of agriculture in our country and the kind of resilience that it has shown, especially during the coronavirus period?
Thank you very much. I don't have to repeat the critical role that agriculture has always played and has proved its resilience during the period of crisis last year. It has brought agriculture into the focus. Agriculture has served the country well, it has served the world well. What now we need to do is to focus on harvesting the potential that agriculture has, and that can be done by broad basing agriculture. The first thing is that thanks to the reaction that we needed to do to the food crisis a few decades back, there has been overemphasis on just one subsector of agriculture. Now, the paradigm shift or the structural transformation of agriculture lies in moving from food to nutrition, from production to incomes for the farmers, and at any cost to efficient costing in the value system, and anyhow system of production to ecologically sustainable system of production. This converts into saying that we need to recognize the importance of the agronomic crops, the horticultural crops, the dairy animal husbandry sector, fish and aquaculture. Any economic model teaches us to tap the low hanging fruits. And today, the low hanging fruits are resting in dairy animal husbandry, fisheries, and aquaculture.
Yes. So Dr. Dalwai has explained to us the kind of untapped potential that exists as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. Let me also now go across to Professor Nayak. Professor Nayak, like Dr. Dalwai mentioned, that we need to restructure the agriculture sector from production. Now we need to talk about income. A lot of measures have been taken by the government in the last few years. Recently, PM Kisan Yojana also completed 2 years, which, according to the government, has benefited a lot of farmers. Do you think right steps are being taken to double the farmers' income? Are we on the right direction?
Thank you very much. On one hand, we do feel that agriculture is very important, in terms of really, producing enough food for everybody in the country and also provide nutritional security, we have been able to look at various problems and try to come up with solutions, but most solutions have been ad hoc, generally try to meet the very short run requirement rather than looking at the long term requirement. I'll give you some examples of why this is so. For example, if you look at today's agriculture, one point that we miss is definitely the market oriented production. So, in order to really have a market oriented production, we need to understand markets, what markets actually want, and how do we transform that into a production process. But that is actually missing. We don't have a very good system of transforming requirements into the production information. So, therefore, what has happened is, if you look at our own production, in some cases we have excess production, some cases we have a deficit production. So, there are imbalances in the production itself. And of course, if you look at the quality of production, there is a lot more, things to be desired out of the agricultural production. So therefore, if you look at, what needs to be done in terms of policies, one is definitely looking at, how do we take care of the agriculture extension. The second thing, in terms of focus on, agriculture should be on markets.
Okay.
So we of course, market can transform information from consumers to producers,
Hmm.
but we have to really develop those markets. I think again, what I would say is most of our government policies have been more ad hoc in nature, and therefore they don't meet the requirements of our agriculture, that's small farm dominated agriculture, and also
Okay.
keeping the long term interest of the farmers. So we need to look at a good market mechanism. Today, if you look at Indian agriculture compared to elsewhere, we don't have a
Hmm.
good risk management facility, and we don't have a good spot markets. That's really a sad point. We
Hmm.
don't have a good spot market. APMCs are there, but the thing is they don't work in the way we want it to work, and therefore there are all kinds of inefficiencies that get built in the
Hmm.
system. So therefore, we need to look at how to strengthen those systems. And of course, third one is the technology. So we did use, several technologies, especially green revolution technology and so on, information technology and so on. So we
Great
do
points
have,
you've raised. Agricultural
yeah,
extension focus should be on a good market mechanism and the use of technology to improve the health of the overall agriculture sector. Very interesting. Mr.
yeah.
Keswar, now, in your opinion, which are the key areas where you think there is untapped potential as far as the agriculture sector is concerned, and the kind of challenges that Indian agriculture sector today is facing?
Okay, thank you for this question. See, for me, first of all, I think I'm not talking only about the government. I think both the government and the private, need to look at agriculture very differently from what it was in the past. In the past, it was basically a green revolution, tried to get as much of food security as concerned. It was right at that time, and unfortunately, rightly, Mr. Dalwai has said that we were not worried about ecological balances. And second thing, what happened is, in order to ensure that there is lot of food security, we also tend to support farmers, I'll say little indiscriminately in certain areas, and used to buy and stock without actually using them. I mean, if you talk to anybody, you'll realize that a lot of food has been bought, but it has never been used, has been wasted. I think this need to change. I think the new agriculture policies, what has been introduced, which gives a reasonably balanced play to everybody, is going to help to change the way we have been looking at. So for me, first thing I'll say is, don't assume. I mean, this is an assumption we always had, that farmers don't know. We have to always tell the farmers what to do. I think we need to get out of that mindset, first of all. Number two, what we have to do is we worry about protectionism, but we really look at it. There's a lot of farmers in India because I interact with them. I'm not talking about the company way of interacting, but I personally interact with a lot of farmers, and there are a lot of farmers who are very happy to do their business the way they want to do. So I think opening up for them to come forward and create new vistas is very important. What is the change happening today in the thing is like what did it in the industrial changes in 1990s, where we had a very protectionism for the manufacturer at that time, and everybody was secure. What I make will be bought. That's a security. Unfortunately, in India, we are given this kind of security to a set of farmers, and
Hmm.
some other farmers were trying to live on their own, and they understand how to live in difficult times. I think the time has come to say we have to open out farmers. They will find out a way. Government can only act as a supporter, somebody who catalyzes the whole thing, but allow farmers want to do.
Okay, so you believe that the mindset of Okay, so you believe, sir, that the minds of the farmers has started changing, and like I mentioned initially, that just like any other sector, even this sector, which employs so many people in our country, the farmer, who's also called as the annadata, also needs support, from everyone, be it the government, be it the private sector, or any kind of technological change that we can bring to help improve the life of a farmer. You've touched upon some very important policy interventions that can be made. And I also want to go across to now Mr. Raghavan to take his opening comments on the kind of potential that the private sector is seeing as far as the agriculture space today is concerned. The three panelists already have told us about the kind of challenges and the areas which have the potential right now. What is your view, Mr. Raghavan?
Thank you to the other panelists and thank you, Hina-san, for the question. You know, if I were to look at the problem statement with a technology lens, uh, it is very important to recognize that we are probably looking at three different things. There's an input side and there's an output side, and there is a pipe in the middle. So the issues that we are trying to address has to go to the right segmentation in the farmer community. For instance, in India, there are about 150 million smallhold farmers who produce close to 80% of the food demand.
Hmm.
Now, imagine if you give a high technology solution to a smallhold farmer, it may not work. So, the speed at which the input side works versus the speed at which the output side works, there has to be an impedance matching done. Technology can play a role in that. The output side is characterized by markets, consumers, loyalty, packaging, safety, assurance, and it is at the whims of the buyers, customers like us. Whereas the input side have to live through the land and the soil cycle, the crop cycle, while the farmer lives his own life cycle. And if you have to really think about the challenges, if we don't bring governance solution along with technology blend, very rarely do these initiatives scale. And this is what we have seen.
Absolutely. But I think what all of you, in a way, have indicated that it's very, very important to recognize the small and the marginal farmers. And they are extremely important because they are the ones which constitute the lion's share of India's farm holdings, which is about 86 odd percent. Gentlemen, stay on with us. Let me also invite our viewers as well. There is a poll question that we are now going to show to our viewers. They can participate as well in this discussion, and they can also share their views. The first question that we're asking today is, has the pandemic accelerated the digitization of India's agriculture sector? You can choose between yes or no. The details, of course, are there on your screen. You can also participate and get involved in this discussion. Now, Dr. Dalbai, like any other sector, do you believe that the pandemic has accelerated this, process of digitization in the agri sector as well, or do you think it's still, some time away?
Thank you very much. You have hit the nail on the bullseye. The government's award policy, and it has been focusing emphatically on transforming agriculture into digital agriculture. Because digitalization, coupled with the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or big data analytics or geospatial technologies, do help us in in regulating, in managing agriculture from end to end. And two of the most important interventions that it can make relate to risk management and the post harvest management. In the risk management, whether it relates to pest and disease or weather or water, in the post harvest management related to prices and demand, the digital technology does help us. Now, what we have seen over the last 1 year is where the physical contact was barred, including at the post-harvest management stage, like marketing particularly. Government accelerated the pace of enrollment of the people onto the digital platforms. Now, the supply side has always been very robust in India, but the demand side is what is very important. And what the pandemic saw was the farmers and all other stakeholders, including the traders, the manufacturers, processors, also coming on board. They realize the virtue of it. There's no doubt,
Hmm.
as we see from the fact that today more farmers are on eNAM platform, more farmers are on online virtual platforms, more farmers are today plugged on to the input management site. More
Hmm.
farmers today inquire our EggMarkNet for the prices. And more farmers are today looking at the weather forecast. These are just illustrations. More concrete terms, the direct benefit transfer, which our panelists have emphasized, has actually taken a firm root. Now, PM Kisan, with one push of a button, millions of farmers in real time and accurately get their deposits into their bank account. And this has been
Hmm.
so across the board. For example, some states have also tested how to transfer seed subsidies. Now,
Okay.
certainly there has been an acceleration, and going forward, it is a lighthouse for the simple reason, as Mr. Keshavan and others pointed out, we need to shift from price support to income support in the Indian agriculture. Price
Hmm.
support means it is kind based concessions. When we have kind based concessions, it promotes what is called a centripetal opportunity. To illustrate, if we give a MSP and procurement based on MSP for a wheat crop or a paddy crop, all the farmers would certainly go for paddy because it's an incentive. Then they get a good
Hmm.
seed. Because they get a good seed, they get a free water, free electricity, or subsidized inputs. So a farmer who takes one input tends to get every other subsidy based input. And in the
Hmm.
result, a large number of farmers, large areas get left out. When we shift from price support to income support and say that this is the entitlement I provide for in my kitty, and I
Hmm.
transfer it to you through the DBT, and the farmer becomes a true entrepreneur in sync with the market forces, in sync with the demand domestically and in the export market, in sync with
Hmm.
agroecology. He takes a decision to produce or to cultivate, to manage the kind of agriculture system that he wants to. So I would certainly
Okay.
say that pandemic has accelerated and demonstrated the value of transparency, objectivity, accuracy in reaching out to the farmers. And today, with more robust supply side, there is a government management, and the demand
Hmm.
side, the stakeholders demanding for it. The future will certainly see government shifting from price support system to income support system, and that will be more
Hmm.
egalitarian, in sync with the constitutional provision of equality and equitability, and also the welfare of
Okay.
the farmers. So I think we can only look for brighter future. And
Hmm.
given the fact that today government is trying to bring it into the core, And the people also believe that agriculture can become the core of an economy, and not just, you wanted an anecdote. Also, sorry, I'm taking a little more time, but I would say in
Yeah.
1984, when the United States of America faced similar problem of excess supply and farmers getting less and less market prices, they shifted their agriculture production from food to what is called bioeconomy. They
Okay.
changed the variety. They looked for new species in the wild forest, which can be
Hmm.
actually brought to the farms, domesticated, new varieties released by the scientists, so that they
Hmm.
was become the feedstock for bioenzymes, for the biomaterials and the biofuel. So in
Hmm.
1984, America did that, and subsequently European Union adopted the policy, a bioeconomy policy, and India too now is
Okay.
doing that. It only goes to show that agriculture is not the past; it is
Hmm.
a present, and it is the future, not
Hmm.
just for agriculture, but for the entire economic structure of the world.
Dr. Dalbai, the sense that you're giving to us is that the government has got good intentions as far as the farming community in our country is concerned, has got big plans as well. Before I go across to my other guest, I think Mr. Raghavan wanted to intervene while you were speaking. Very quickly, sir. Make your point.
Just a quick anecdote. Since you brought up the pandemic and the crisis, certain irreversible changes have happened. Uh, the reverse migration of the urban population back to their villages. Do you know what it has done? It has suddenly brought IT capacity, IT knowledge in those segments of farming community and the villages which never existed. So the whole uptick of whether digital payments, of using closed loop solutions, whether trying to use some IT intervention, there has been a very nice bringing together of this newfound resource base which has gone back to its villages. I just wanted to make the comment that, the saying that don't let a crisis go waste. I think we have
Hmm.
seen the farmer community really live this saying. Over to you, Hina-san.
Okay, but Mr. Kesman, now my another question is that all this is right. You have big plans. There are solutions via technology as well that can actually help improve the life of a farmer. But is he ready to accept these kind of changes? I mean, of course, there are some who are accepting these new changes, bringing them into their lives as well. But there are many who still are not. I mean, look at what's happening across the country. The three farm laws, which many experts said are, in a way, the 1991 moment for the agriculture sector. But see the response on the ground. So, what do we do about this resistance?
Two parts. One is, are farmers willing to accept the changes? Believe me, they are. Okay, so that is one part of it. I'm going to give you one account to example so that we will be able to. I'll give you real life examples. I mean, that's the best way of looking at it. The second question is why this kind of resistance is happening. It's very simple. This is one example I always give people is you take a group of people, lock them up, feed them very well, ensure that whatever they produce, I buy. Then I try to open that gate and say, now you're free. That fellow will never come out because he has been so comfortable doing what he is doing. And from that, he was getting what he wanted to get. And now you tell him, boss, you have to work in an open area. I'm going to leave it. It becomes a nightmare for some other people. And of course, there are politics. I don't want to get into that. So I think one of the biggest problem we are facing is you have taken a set of farmers, you have cuddled them and huddled them for last so many years. You almost bought everything what they can produce. Now they are worried that if tomorrow, if I continue to do that, I'll have a problem. I think this has to be assessed and agreed, and you have to find a solution to it. I'm not saying these worries are wrong. You have to find a solution to it. But let us also look at the other issues. You have very serious problems in these two states with respect to where is the groundwater? You continue to do rice and wheat. Where is the groundwater situation today there? So, rightly, you talked about bioeconomic policy, Dalbai said. I think it's high time that we have to start working for the future generation rather than trying to protect our generation, because if you try to do the things the way you are doing it today, your future generations are hurt. So there is a policy change required. Coming to the next question, are farmers willing to accept this? I'll give you one very simple example. I mean, since the CSR project, I'm not going to talk about any name of the company. What happened was, during the corona, in the type of COVID, there was a there was a small effort made to connect the farmers who are having mechanization equipment, so that they can rent it to the farmers not having mechanization equipment. And people actually persuaded and said, "Hey, this is not going to work, because now they had to work on a smartphone, and the money will be transferred to the renter through a digital means. Do you think it's going to happen?" And that's a question asked to people. Believe
Hmm.
me, this is something which actually caught on. Within a month's time, things changed, and the people having equipment gave it to people not having equipment, and they got paid within 10 days of rental, which does not
Okay.
happen. So that means the farmers can accept digital methodology when it happens.
You need to demonstrate, you need to make them aware probably of the benefits that technology can bring in the work that they are doing. Very interesting point Mr. Keswan has made. I have to quickly take another poll question as well, for our viewers as well to participate in this discussion. My second question now is it time for India to spread more awareness in terms of the use of technology in the agri sector? Yes or no? You can participate by replying to this. Now, Professor Nayak, I want you to respond to this question as well. Do you think, perhaps better mechanisms are needed now to demonstrate, like Mr. Keswan was also mentioning, to the farmers about the positive impact of various technological changes that the government is planning to bring, or what the private sector has been working on? Do you think perhaps more effort needs to be made in that field too?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I think we need lot of efforts to make sure that farmers are able to adopt technology. Farmers usually adopt technology when you really see a demonstration, a demonstrated benefit, rather than just by explaining and so on. This we have seen in the Green Revolution period also, where demonstration plots have helped in adopting technology. So when if you can demonstrate that there is a clear benefit to the farmers, farmers are ready to adopt technology. I don't see any problem in adopting technology. But I think a lot of times, what the problem is, whether government is able to create an ecosystem within which they can actually adopt technology. For example, digital technology. Have we created enough, broadband, access to farmers so that they can use digital technology effectively? The farmers, who are probably located nearby big cities and so on, may be able to utilize digital technology. But those who are in the remote places, they really have problems. We our all our plans of connecting remote places have not really been implemented properly, and therefore people in the remote areas have problems. They can't really access digital technology, and it would have been a great help for them, especially in the COVID situation, as well as some of the technical savvy people going back to the rural area. It would have been a right opportunity to really make the rural area using digital technology for various benefits, whether it is e-commerce or tele-education, telemedicine, and so on. But the thing is, there is a lot of issues with respect to availability, reliability of the internet services, broadband services. Those are the issues. I think if you create an appropriate ecosystem and demonstrate it, farmers are ready to adopt technology. And there may be certain issues with respect to illiteracy, language problems, and so on. But with
Hmm.
appropriate training, it's always possible to make sure that the farmers adopt technology.
Okay, very interesting. I know Dr. Talwai wants to make a point as well. But before that, I want to go across to Mr. Raghavan. Any kind of solutions that you think you can offer to deal with the problems that we've discussed or you have developed for the farmers, say, in the last 1 year? Did you can talk to us about any examples?
So one of the solutions is really the master e-governance platform on which we believe the digital initiatives should rest. And the reason is that such a platform allows bringing together of this disparate ecosystem. Different stakeholders in the ecosystem have different needs. And the master e-governance platform essentially helps cater to these very diverse needs. Secondly, in terms of the agriculture solutions, the grain to grain convergent solutions from Hitachi MGRM Net really address the span holistically, from the land and the soil cycle to the crop cycle to the farmer cycle, and helps the farming community to come out from the closed loop to the open loop market. And while doing so, uh, Dalai sir mentioned about the relevance of artificial intelligence, big data, geospatial technologies. These are important technologies. The state also has an important role to play in large scale geospatial technology, ownership mapping of plots. Data becomes an important asset here. And what we have realized is that there is no good data. What data should we rely on to build the AI? We bring the AI capabilities, but if the government can come forward and provide authenticated data sets, we can really work wonders for the farming community.
I want you to respond to the concern raised by Mr. Raghavan about the data aspect here. There's a acute lack of data and insights at ground and at the farmer level as well. So how does one even create a solution that's going to help the immediate problems?
Yes. See, there is always a feeling that the farmers are looking for data. Farmers are looking for solutions. I think this is one mistake we always make. Data is an intermediary area. But you go and give the data to the farmers, he is not worried. Actually, he doesn't want it. His question is, what's the solution? So I think the entire data system is going to come in such a way. I think Dr. Dalwai can add on to it. I know Government of India has created idea where they are going to have all this farm related data. I think my estimate is by middle of 2022, they will have the complete scenario map and the data will be available for anybody to take it. Now, this data is unless you analyze and convert it into a solution, is not going to help the farmers. And where the biggest advantage is going to come is all these startups and the middle people, rather than running around for getting this data, they can access the data government will be providing, add their own data, which is what I call is the micro data into a particular area. Then they can actually start giving a solution to the farm.
Yes, Dr. Dalwai, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I just want to compliment my co-panelists on the matter of digital technology. While there is no gainsaying that we need to strengthen our hard component, we need greater emphasis on the soft component. So in this regard, I'll talk of four things. First one is to take up a robust digital literacy of our farmers and other stakeholders. And second one is to take up what's called financial literacy of our farmers and other stakeholders at the grassroots level. In the absence of these two literacies, we'll be reverting to 19th and early parts of 20th century when large part of India was illiterate. Today, we need literacy in terms of digital access, financial access, because we are trying to now move on to DBT or income support. And so far as the digitalization of agriculture itself is concerned, one important thing is to now liberalize the data access. If we say that we want private sector and the corporate sector to partner with government in transforming agriculture, and if extension is the key to transforming because they are the farmers are the entrepreneurs and they are the primary stakeholders, we need not keep this locked up. We can have a policy. Either we give it free or have a concessionally priced access to the farmer, I mean to the private sector. So I think we need to
Right.
come out with a policy where the access data is open. The fourth one is that notwithstanding the penetration of the smartphones, notwithstanding the penetration of the optical fiber, we will still have a large community of people who cannot afford privately owned access to net. So we need to create large number of community owned or entrepreneur driven customer centers at the rural centers, so that the farmers are able to access for input
Hmm.
management, output management, risk management, or accessing their benefits, entitlements. So these are the four pillars I would say that will help
Okay.
India to scale up the digitalization. And there's no way but to adopt a very healthy digital technology in the agriculture
Hmm.
domain.
Pull us into confidence as well. I think that has been the
Yeah,
learning, as
yeah.
we speak. And I have to take another question for
No,
our
Hina,
viewers as
if you
well.
don't mind, Hina,
Yes, I'll
I'm
give
just
you time,
impelled to
sir.
make one point because I want to,
Yes,
we
very
all four of us here speaking for the farmers that they're not resistant. You know, when
yes.
India was liberalized in 1791, we had a Bombay class of people who wanted domestic liberalization but not global liberalization. If a few
Hmm.
stakeholders, even within the strong industry class, manufacturing class, felt that the cozy comfort was going to be now disrupted,
Hmm.
farmers, as you rightly said, 263 million people, there will be different categories of people. So the very fact that our farmers have adopted new technology in 1965 and have made
Hmm.
India food surplus, it is a good demonstration that our farmers are
Okay.
open to technology, open to science. It is we who need to create that policy and program and the methodology of reaching out to them. Just a point without hurting anybody. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to take another question. Then, of course, I'll be coming to each one of you for your closing comments. The third poll question that we have for our viewers right now is that has the financial inclusion drive of the government with the private players helped the farmers as much as it was expected? Yes or no? You can pick any answer, connect with us, and share with us your views as well. Let me go back to our guests as well. Mr. Keswan, I think you wanted to make a point, your closing comments. Would you also like to respond to this aspect? Has the financial drive of the government managed to meet its goal?
Uh, okay, I want to make a different comment, but let me finish with this. The financial drive of the government is definitely giving returns. I think it's a
Okay.
question is we need to really do it a little more. I mean, you just started it, so I think it's going to take time. But definitely it is giving returns. But the most important thing I wanted to touch upon what Mr. Dalwai said is, see, don't forget, agriculture is the only area we hardly import any equipments or anything for domestic work, and with the existing technology developed locally. And I'll really give a lot of credence to people in Punjab for it. That kind of equipments, what they made, those equipments and those farmers and those efforts across India has made India surplus. So how can we say that we don't accept technology? We accept the technology what is relevant to us. You come and give me a German machine which is some 20 times the cost. I don't want it. These characters will make the local stuff.
Yes.
That's the strength.
Yes.
And you give them the right
True, true.
technology, they'll buy.
Okay,
Yes,
Mr.
true, true.
Raghavan,
That's it.
do
That's
you
my
face
comment.
any
I'm
kind
ending.
of a challenge? I think you've summed it up quite well. And I want Mr. Raghavan to respond to it because he's the one who goes with the technology to the farmers. And tell us a little bit about your experience, your closing comments now.
So, the government has the ambitious goal of these 10,000 FPOs, and I believe, that is the segment to focus on, where, from a technology standpoint, from the startups initiative standpoint, from any private company that wants to focus on agriculture, will get its return on investment. Uh, Building solutions for communities, building solutions for their well-being holistically. While we think about the farmer, we should also think about his education. We should also think about his good health. A disease-free crop environment is equally important as the farmer's health also. So technology has to wrap all these needs, and only then it will be successful. That's where I will leave
But
it.
it has to be the right technology, and you need to demonstrate it as well. I think that's the message that you must have got by now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we as consumers won't buy anything until we see it for ourselves. So that goes without saying. When we have to drink our own soup.
Okay. Professor Nayak, your closing comments.
Yeah, I guess what is important in current context is we need to really focus a lot more on farmer producer organization. I think many things can be resolved if we can actually have an effective working functional farmer producer organization, whether it is with respect to extension, whether it is with respect to bringing information from market to the producers, whether it is advising farmers in terms of right application of inputs, as well as value addition and marketing of produce. So, in all these, farmer producer organization emphasis will be very important. The other things we haven't talked about is a legal aspect in the sense that land loss and so on. I think that needs to be reforms required in order to make sure that the land ownership is cleaned up. Today it's really messy, and that
Yes.
creates a whole lot of problem in terms of accessing credit and also a lot of litigation and so on. So that's another area that we should really focus on in order to really help farmers in really getting that potential, harness the
Hmm.
potential that they have in agriculture.
Okay. Dr. Dalwai, I give you the last word now. Do you think perhaps some kind of clarity is also needed so that policies are made for the farmer who works on the field, not just for the farmer who owns the land?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you have raised a very important issue, and my co-panelists were actually hinting at this thing that if we want to unlock the agriculture potential in the future, we need to make agriculture more inclusive, which means that we have a redefined description of a farmer. A farmer need not be somebody who just owns land. He can be somebody who also owns water body, for example, as a fisherman. And both land owning and water body owning class of farmers need not be having a right title and interest. They could be also lessees. They could have taken these properties on lease from private people, from government, or any other source. So we need a more inclusive definition of farmer. And with the technology available with us today, we can have a dynamic database so that one year I could be a farmer, next year I may not be a farmer. The second one is about the land issues which Professor Gopal has rightly brought out. Today, we need a structural change relating to land. First is to
Yes.
ensure that there is dynamic and consistent changes or mutations to the land records based on ownership. Second one
Hmm.
is also to recognize lessees and sharecroppers so that we have a more inclusive definition of farmers, and that answers directly what you raised. The man who
Hmm.
actually toils on the farm, who soils his hand, and not an absently landlord. Today,
Hmm.
to an extent of 25%, there is what is called informal lease system in India. And unfortunately, since the law does not recognize that, rather the state revenue laws discourage this kind of a thing. These farmers
Hmm.
are not able to invest money, they're not able to access credit, they're not able to access benefits or even relief measures. So we need to have that thing. Third one is to focus on the 52% of the rainfed areas of this country. That is
Hmm.
where the technological potential of agriculture has not been harvested. While in India, on
Okay.
an average, only 66 to 67% of the true potential of the technology, like seed, for example, has been harvested.
Right.
In the rainfed areas, it is less than 50%, which means that in simple language, if the scientists told us that the potential of a particular seed in paddy is 6 tons per
Hmm.
hectare, what we are now realizing is 4.5
Hmm.
tons or only 3
Absolutely.
tons in rainfed areas. So the
Hmm.
technological harvesting of the full potential is important, and that calls for the extension system. And
Hmm.
today, extension has to be inclusive, and inclusive in the
Hmm.
sense We strengthen public extension system as it was under the T&B system for the common farmers, and we also
Right.
enable enterprise-driven extension system backed finally by digital technology because manpower-based extension is very costly. We need to
Hmm.
optimize, even if it's not costly, the
Hmm.
real-time data transfer, information transfer will call for use of digital technology. So finally, let
Hmm.
me end up where I started. We need a more
Yeah.
inclusive policy. But then, let me
Absolutely.
also say lastly, government has taken firm steps towards this. It has already
Hmm.
shared with the state government a model land lease act. It has shared with the
Hmm.
state governments a system of what is called a computerization of the primary agriculture cooperative societies. It has
Right.
shared with the state government the policies for farmer producers organization. It has shared with the
So, in
state
a
government
nutshell,
liberalization of APMC.
there is a lot that
Sorry.
can be done by
Yeah.
the use of technology to completely change the face of agriculture in the country. The only sector, in fact, which showed positive growth when everything else was shut because of coronavirus pandemic last year, and to improve its contribution to agriculture further from 20% currently, of course it needs support from everyone. Appreciate all of you for joining us on this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being with you all.
Thank you.